ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my Week 12 Top 25 review. This week was a whole bunch of potential that did not live up. I don't think there was one insane upset that isn't even covered in this video because it's not top 25. It was New Mexico State versus Auburn. That was absolutely wild. But before we get into the video, I just want to ask, because I feel like it'd be shitty to post something other than college football on a channel literally called College Football Guy. But I've been recording these Satisfactory episodes and shit just because, I felt like it and I like the game a lot. So let me know in the comments if you'd actually care about that and want to watch it. I don't know. It was just like an idea that I put out there. But with that being said, let's get straight into this video. First off, we have another game that did not live up to its so-called potential. Michigan at Maryland. This was a game that I didn't even see being such a close game. I thought it was going to be an annihilation. Michigan, I thought they were going to absolutely slaughter this Maryland team. This Maryland team has been on the fattest of downs this year. After that Ohio State game, they went into it, 5-0? They have won one game since then. They got killed at Ohio State, lost at home to Illinois, lost on the road to Northwestern, got killed by Penn State at Maryland, and then they barely beat Nebraska by 3 at Nebraska. I was like, there's no way. But this is what I just hate about the Big Ten. It's this, they just don't look like good teams when they play. I mean, the only good thing about Michigan is their defense and their running game. And I mean, obviously those are major parts of a football team, right? Well, I feel like so is passing, and JJ McCarthy has been really shit so far from what I have actually seen. I'm not really, a lot of people are going to be like, he's been great in other games. I mean, who the fuck else has he played? He threw 8 passes against Penn State and completed 7 of them. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, at least 3 or 4 of those had to at least be checkdowns or whatnot. In this game, he threw 12 for 23, 141 yards, and 1 pick. No touchdowns. Talia put up better stats than him in a way. Talia went 21 for 31, 247 yards, and 2 interceptions, but he also had a crucial intentional grounding that resulted in a safety, making it a 7-point game. Yeah, that's right. Michigan had 2 safeties. They got 4 points of safeties to give them this final score. I don't know, man. I just don't look at Michigan now as that good of a team. I know it's a road game, and road games tend to be more difficult, as well as teams in college like to play down to their difficulty. But still, this was not a good look at all for Michigan. It really has summed up the Big Ten as a conference for me. These teams are shitty, lack of offense, all defense. That's even a lot to say that they're all defense. I mean, really. Their defenses are good, but Ohio State barely beat Notre Dame on the road. Notre Dame got slaughtered by Louisville and lost to Clemson. I mean, and the only other loss for Notre Dame, one would say, is against Ohio State. But still, I mean, Ohio State barely snuck that one out of their ass. That's one of the only impressive steps outside of the conference that we've seen this year. I mean, there hasn't been many other impressive non-conference performances by the Big Ten. I think, seriously, the Big Ten could get absolutely railed in the offseason. I was praying for this upset, so hopefully, we'd get a one-loss Michigan team versus an undefeated Ohio State team. Then Michigan would somehow win. Now we have 2 one-loss teams, and then Michigan would somehow lose in the conference championship, so there's no Big Ten team. Because I feel like these teams are going to stink up the college football playoffs, just be bad. Just make it a bad, boring game to watch. But yeah, this game did not live up to its potential upset power. Maryland isn't a good football team. Michigan just played like shit. Had Talia made a little bit less mistakes, Maryland wins this game, but there's a reason they're 6-5, and that's because Talia continues to make mistakes. Chattanooga, Bama, we don't need to talk about this. I said shutout. It was pretty bad. It wasn't a shutout, but it was very, very, it was an obliteration. Louisville at Miami. This one had a lot of potential going into it. But, man, something I noticed about this game is Miami playing in the Dolphins Stadium. They were not filling up the stadium. I mean, why? I feel like Miami should have their own stadium. Like, why are you guys playing in the Dolphins Stadium? You're never going to fill that thing up. Never. So that felt weird. That kind of felt like a lack of momentum for me. It's like looking and seeing that the crowd wasn't full, even though it's a massive stadium and there were a lot of fans there, seeing that the stadium wasn't full kind of was like, whatever. It was 65,000 capacity, 45,000 fans showed up. But still, 65,000 is a lot of seats to fill for a 6-4 Miami team. There was a lot of people there at the game, but still, I feel like there was a lot of empty seats that could be seen, and that can sort of tilt the momentum. But whatever, that's just my opinion. That might not affect the game at all. But ultimately, the stats for the game, both teams were very split. Louisville had 470 yards of offense. Miami had 486. Both teams had 50 yards of penalties. However, Louisville had the only turnover in this game with a pick, but Miami did have a turnover on downs, which probably came on their final drive of the game, if we're being honest. They turned the ball over on downs after Louisville went up 7. They turned it over, then Louisville would punt it, and then the game would end. Miami, they just weren't able to live up. They're just not back yet. They're a very, very good 6-5 team. They might destroy the team they play in the bowl season. I don't think they'll go 6-6. I mean, on the road at Boston College doesn't look as bad anymore. Compared to what Boston College was. They were 6-3, and I actually thought Boston College was good, let alone I had made a whole video on it, and I said in the description, now that I said anything, they're going to lose out, and now it looks like they're actually going to do so. But Miami, Tyler Van Dyke actually looks pretty good. 24 for 39, 327 yards, and a touchdown. You might be like, 24 for 39 is not that good. Remember, this is the number 10 team in the nation. I mean, come on. This is the number 10 team in the nation. They've got to at least have a good defense. I mean, if anything, it looks like Louisville's defense is the tougher spot on the team. He played really well. The run game for both teams was great. Restrepo was the one who took the best spot on the team for Miami. He 8 receptions, 193 yards and a touchdown. Really, really good stats there. But, Louisville ends up coming out on top somehow. Even though Miami pretty much led the game, it's just probably a pretty bad failed conversion on 4th down led to Miami's demise in this game. And Louisville looks primed to go to the college football playoff, if you ask me. Louisville's got to host Kentucky next week, and then they've played Florida State without Florida State's starting quarterback in the ACC championship. Now, I know Florida State's still got a lot of talent and a lot of weapons on that team other than just the quarterback. But me personally, I have no idea how the Florida State quarterback now would play. And honestly, I was looking at the Florida State Louisville championship game before Jordan Travis got hurt. It's only been amplified. Rutgers at Penn State, another game that sums up Big Ten play. I said Rutgers were going to get killed because it's at Penn State, and Penn State's, number 12. Dude, 6-23. Like, I would have left the game if I was even a Penn State fan. Like, this was a sellout crowd, y'all. 105,000 fans entered the stadium in a capacity of 106,000. Okay, so they were off by like 1,000 people, but that's still pretty much like a sellout crowd. And ultimately, Penn State's defense was the shining star in this game, as Rutgers had 3 turnovers, as well as they were only able to convert 4 of their 13 third downs, and they had 48 yards of penalties. Penn State was 0 for 1 on 4th down efficiency, 322 yards, 2 yards of penalties, and 1 turnover being a fumble. This team, Penn State, had 88 yards of passing yards, 234 on the ground. They're just not good. Rutgers is 6-5. They're one of the lower end Big Ten teams. Penn State's not good. Michigan's just ever so slightly better than Penn State, and honestly, Ohio State's a little bit better than Michigan. I hope that saying that doesn't piss anybody off, but at least Ohio State can pass the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr., whereas Michigan and Penn State, they can't throw the ball. They just can't. ULM at Ole Miss, dude, this one was looking wild. This one was looking crazy. 7-3 going into halftime. I said we would have the Alabama-Chattanooga final score, but no. This game ended up being, it still was a kick-ass game for Ole Miss, but it took an entire half to get into that. I mean, it took almost a whole quarter for Ole Miss to score, and then they didn't put up points in the second quarter. And ULM would kick a 26-yard field goal to make it 3-7. Keep in mind, ULM is 2-9. Going 3-7 into half against Ole Miss, clearly there was some little halftime punishment for Ole Miss because they came out punching, putting up 21 points in the third quarter, and then a touchdown with Spencer Sanders in the fourth to put this one away. As they should. This should have been a much easier game, but I mean, Ole Miss isn't that good of a team either. Really, every step of competition they've taken, Ole Miss has lost, and pretty bad. I mean, they got shut out defensively against Alabama, and they got slaughtered by Georgia. They've just got a good win against LSU, but you know what? Ole Miss is strong on the offense, and LSU's very weak on the defense as well. It's the same way both ways, so it's just an offensive shootout. But still, Ole Miss is not the most impressive team to me. I'm not a big fan of Ole Miss right now. Oklahoma at BYU, just another game to sum up the potential this week had that it didn't live up to. I said Oklahoma would kill this team. Oklahoma, oh my God, the hiccups. Oklahoma's already got the 2 losses that they could have taken. They should win out. I don't know what the Big 12 championship situation's looking like. It looks like Oklahoma State will be playing Texas if Oklahoma State wins next week, which I don't know. They play BYU. They host BYU. That should be a win for them. Oklahoma hosts TCU, though. So, I mean, if Oklahoma State loses and Oklahoma wins, that's the only way to get back in. I can't believe Oklahoma has really sold this hard. I don't know what the situation for Kansas State potentially getting back into the Big 12 championships looking like, but I'd honestly rather see Kansas State in rather than Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma continues to scrape by ever since their win against Texas. Honestly, I think if Oklahoma State plays Texas in the Big 12 championship, I think Oklahoma State will win. Because the trend that I see in Oklahoma or in Texas football, we're going to branch off to Texas here for a second. The trend that I see in Texas football is Texas likes to play in these low-scoring games where they let the defense do all the work and their offense barely puts up enough points, and then Texas barely walks out of the stadium alive. Ever since that Oklahoma game, I feel like that was when it started, and Oklahoma was the only team to take advantage of the opportunity scoring that last-second touchdown. I mean, literally the next or 2 weeks later, yes, Quinn Ewers was out against Houston, but Houston, all they needed to do was convert a 4th down, and they were in prime position to get the go-ahead a touchdown, and who knows if they would have gone for a 2-point conversion or not, but they could have taken that game to overtime and potentially upset Texas, but they end up going for a stupid 4th down conversion play call that doesn't go. Texas barely wins there. Texas beats up a bad BYU team. Texas gets taken into overtime against Kansas State, where Kansas State chooses to not kick there at 3 and decides to try and go for the game winner on a horrible play call, and they end up losing. Texas barely beats TCU at TCU by 3 points. Texas barely beats Iowa State at Iowa State by 10 points. Iowa State had 6 minutes and 14 seconds left. Texas would make it a 10-point game. Iowa State couldn't respond from that point on. I'm just like, this Texas team likes to play in low-scoring games where they let the defense do all the work and the offense puts up the bare minimum. Oklahoma just happened to take advantage of that opportunity at the time because Oklahoma since then has not really performed like a good team at all, really at all. They beat Texas, then they barely beat UCF by 2, lose at Kansas, lose at Oklahoma State, kill a bad West Virginia team, and then barely beat a bad BYU team on the road. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to beat TCU, knocking TCU out of a bowl game, which would actually be quite comical considering they made it to the national championship last year. It kick TCU out of bowl game eligibility. I think they'll still be 10-2, and they still are a pretty decent team, but really, I mean, they do struggle in many aspects. And I mean, BYU's not good, man. BYU's not good at all. They're 5-6. They've been killed by so many opponents in this conference. For BYU or for Oklahoma to struggle is not a good look for them. Tulane at FAU. I called for the FAU upset. Tulane must have heard me because they finally put up more points other than just the first half of football. Final score is 24-8. At least I got Tulane's score right. Tulane would score a touchdown in the first quarter, then they'd score a touchdown early in the second quarter, and then we go into the half with no points. Let me check and see if there was any missed field goals for Tulane. I feel like that is quite the common occurrence in some of these games. It looks like they fumbled it on the first possession of the game. Yep, a missed field goal in somewhere in like the third or fourth quarter or something. I don't know. It doesn't tell me. It just says halves. So in the second half, there was a missed field goal for Tulane, which is a trend I feel like in the Tulane games. They like to miss field goals. But the thing was, the difference here is that Tulane would actually score points in the third quarter, which is something that has been kind of rare. They kept the momentum going. Yes, they shut down in the fourth quarter and didn't score any points and allowed FAU to score a touchdown and 2-point conversion, but they're up 24-0 with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There's no reason to just pound this team into the floor. You're already kicking the crap out of them. Now, if they score another touchdown, kick it back into overdrive, Michael Pratt is back to the level that I was originally praising him for. He was 21 for 28, 252 yards, and 3 touchdowns, as well as the running back for Tulane was great as well. Makai, I'm assuming his name is Makai Hughes, with 21 carries for 72 yards. Tulane advances to 10-1. They're pretty good. Again, Utah, Arizona. I pretty much called for this. It actually started to torrential downpour in this game, which was weird. And yeah, it was 42-24. That was my prediction. I was off a little bit. I don't know why Utah was even close to being favored in this game, really. They kind of sucked. They kind of really sucked. Now it says that Utah barely had any less yards than U of A, but I feel like that is it doesn't scale when you have Bryson Barnes as your quarterback, because he threw 2 picks, as well as there were two of their 4 fourth down attempts were failed. Utah had 35 minutes of possession time versus U of A's 24 minutes, which means U of A was pretty much just getting the ball and scoring. And ultimately, U of A could have made this game a lot worse. The first quarter, they opened up with 21 points, and then very early in the second quarter, they'd score again, making it 28-0. Utah would put on a touchdown going into the half. Then they kick a field goal halfway through the third quarter. Then U of A would score another touchdown. Utah would score a fairy tale touchdown and 2-point conversion. And then, of course, in typical Jaden DeLora fashion, he'd shoot the deep bomb, try to get his starting position back, and run up the score on Utah with 32 seconds left to make it 42-18. I don't know why DeLora did that, even though Utah did it to ASU, and I was kind of pissed about it. U of A does it back. It's still not acceptable. But after all, it is the Jaden DeLora mentality of a cocky piece of shit attitude. I like the other quarterback, Noah Fafita, way more than Jaden DeLora. And yeah, Utah got pounded, and they're still receiving more votes to be ranked than NC State, which is just absolutely wild in my opinion. Georgia at Tennessee, another team that is still in the AP top 25. Might I keep that known? I said it'd be close because Tennessee's got vengeance on their mind as well. They've got one of the craziest home fields, and they've got potential for their team. They might just be able to perform like not shit for one game. Wrong. Almost got Georgia's score right. Wasn't even close on Tennessee's score. They got absolutely embarrassed on their home turf. I mean, really, like Georgia didn't even score points in the fourth quarter. There was no points scored by either team in the fourth quarter. Like the fans, there must have been like 12 fans left in the stands and like the third strings and fucking red shirts the coaches on the field and the mascot at that point. Like the game was over by the end of the third quarter. Really, 38-10 was the final score. Pretty much could have just said the game was over at 1 minute and 3 seconds left in the third quarter. Georgia dominated. They've officially secured their number one spot, as they should. I was shitting on this team at the beginning of the year. I now see that they are actually a very good team. I mean, I know I know Tennessee's not a good team, but still very impressive win. Just absolutely killing this team at Tennessee. I don't understand if that, like, to me, I feel like there's only a couple really good teams in the SEC, that being Georgia, Missouri, and Alabama, and LSU's offense, not LSU's defense. Ole Miss, Tennessee, A&M, Auburn, Florida, they're just not good teams, and it really shows because Tennessee's a 4-loss team in the conference, but so far all of their losses have just been embarrassments. I mean, at Florida they got embarrassed, at Tennessee they got embarrassed, at Missouri they got extremely embarrassed, at home against Georgia they got extremely embarrassed. I mean, Tennessee somehow has managed to go 7-4 this year. They're still in the top 25, which is just terrible. But let's get on to this game. This was the most Iowa game ever, of course. With that being said, you can only assume a safety was scored, and you would be right. My prediction was 7-26. I thought Iowa was on a big up, but just when you try to praise Iowa, they like to scare you. Iowa's got to go on the road to Nebraska next week. I think Iowa has secured their Big Ten or their Big Ten championship appearance. Yeah, definitely. They can lose to Nebraska next week. It wouldn't matter. Northwestern's the team next in line. Dude, the Big Ten West is so shit. It's Iowa, who's 9-2, and then Northwestern 6-5, Wisconsin 6-5, Illinois 5-6, Minnesota 5-6, Nebraska 5-6, Purdue 3-8. Their conference is so shit. Really, there's only 4 good teams, or considerably good teams in the Big Ten. It'd be Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and Iowa, because they've actually got really positive records. And the next team in line, I'd probably say, would be Northwestern. Northwestern is just, I don't even know who they lost to. They barely beat Howard, which is wild. They got killed at Duke. They got beat up pretty good at Rutgers to open the season. I don't know, man. Let's go back to the Iowa game, though. This game started off early first quarter with a safety. Then Illinois would score a touchdown or a field goal. Iowa would score a touchdown and extra point to make it 9. And then Illinois would score a touchdown. So the second quarter was freaking action-packed for an Iowa game. And then no points scored in the third quarter. But with 4 seconds into the fourth quarter, Illinois would kick a field goal. And then to finally put the game away, a 30-yard touchdown run by Caleb Johnson to put them up by 2. But the extra point was blocked. And then that would be the end of the game. Illinois put up a good fight, good competition, but Iowa takes the W home. This game, we don't even need to talk about. It was an annihilation. Wake Forest is back to their shitty ways. North Carolina at Clemson. I said it'd be a bit closer than we'd like it to be, but Drake May kind of got shit on this game. He was 16 for 36, 209 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. It was the run game for North Carolina that actually did anything with their running back going 19 carries, 178, 2 touchdowns. Of course, Will Shipley was great. Cade Klubnik was pretty good as well. 21 for 32, 219 yards and a touchdown. And ultimately, Clemson ended up beating this team. I feel like that was expected. If anything, this 4-loss team should be ranked over Utah and Tennessee. Like, this team has bounced back since the start of the year totally. Minnesota at Ohio State, we don't even need to talk about it. We all expected it. Annihilation. Oregon at ASU, I'm not going to gloss over this. I said this game would be close. My reasoning, I don't really want to go over it because the reasoning because it's a whole bunch of reasoning to try and, create a cushion for my team. But it's in my prediction video if you really care that much to go watch it. But yeah, pretty much I said this one will be closer than people like it. But I didn't really account for the fact that Bo Nix they were going to be having Bo Nix pass and run the ball. This was the team to put Bo Nix way ahead in the Heisman race. That's exactly what they did. I mean, the final score is even a little fraudulent on ASU's side of things because going into halftime, Oregon was up 42-0 on us. Oregon's really good this year. It's crazy. They were up 42-0 on us. And basically, third quarter, ASU would kick a field goal. Then Oregon would score a touchdown with their backup. And then ASU would actually score a touchdown and then a field goal. But yeah, the game is over. I don't want to make excuses. Oregon is a great team, but our quarterback is still hobbled. I thought they were going to, put a healthy quarterback in, but no, he's not in yet. And our starting quarterback is still a little hobbled on his ankle. As well as we were just throwing passes with our running back and shit. Like we were doing anything we could to try and have some offensive capabilities. As well as, something that I felt like was a big takeaway and pretty much when I turned the game off was Oregon starts off the game with a drive that was pretty tough drive for them. They were on a 3rd and 10 pretty much to start things off. They were on a 3rd and 11, but Bo Nix makes a great conversion and then they score a touchdown. And then ASU would actually go down the field, 7 plays, 50 yards, but our kicker would miss the field goal. I feel like that was huge. Even that's all speculation, but I feel like that killed the momentum and the presence of the team. That's so important for being such like a hobbled and bad team right now. You cannot miss the givens. And our kicker has been notorious for that this year. He just misses field goals against good teams. Oregon kicks the shit out of us, as they really should have. Bo Nix was great. He was fantastic. I really think this dude... A lot of people say, Marvin Harrison Jr. should win the Heisman, Jaden Daniels, all these people. And I do agree those are great players, but we have to account for what Bo Nix is doing at Oregon right now. I know it's ASU, but he went 24 for 29, 404 yards and 6 touchdowns. Those were Michael Penix stats at the beginning of the year. Truly, Oregon is fantastic, or Bo Nix is fantastic. Oregon is fantastic. This was a great game for them and a terrible game for ASU. Oklahoma State at Houston, this was looking like it would possibly be an upset. I said Houston would be tough, but Oklahoma State is going to get back into the swing of things. I wasn't necessarily wrong about that, but it was looking like I was going to be terribly wrong, as in the second quarter of football, Houston would get a safety to make it 23-9, so I was like, oh shit. As well as they started off the game with a pick six from 57 yards, so I was kind of like, uh-oh, Oklahoma State might not be, they might be doing what they did last year, but Oklahoma said, guys, we're in the Big 12 championship talk right now. Let's win games, and they went on a massive scoring spree, going from 9 points to 36 points, allowing no points scored by Houston in the time being. In the fourth quarter, 7 minutes, 30 seconds left, Houston would score a touchdown, make it closer. But with 2 minutes, 19 seconds left, Ollie Gordon would put the dagger in, making it 43-30, and Oklahoma State would take the W. Feel like Oklahoma State's major weak point is their defense, which didn't look true against Oklahoma, but Oklahoma does tend to make mistakes and struggle offensively sometimes. Oklahoma State has really bounced back, though, since that South Alabama game. and they take the dub here. Ollie Gordon was great, 25 carries, 164 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Alan Bowman was great, 29 for 43, 348 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick six. That was the only bad part, was a pick six. I don't know how it happened, if it was just blatant and bad or if it was like tipped or something. But pick six is pick six. Oklahoma State takes a dub. North Alabama at FSU. The tragedy, as we all know it. And I'm sorry, I just don't understand why Jordan Travis is even running the ball. I don't know who made the play call for a QB read or whatnot. I know it was probably Jordan Travis's decision to keep the ball and run it, but ultimately you just don't need to risk your quarterback's healthiness against North Alabama, because with your backup quarterback, you guys win 58-13. I just don't know why they did that. But now Jordan Travis has pretty much said his FSU career is over. And just when you think FSU, I mean, honestly, I feel like FSU was probably one of my front runners to win the national championship. It's out the window. It's gone. They're like my last of the good teams now. Now, I don't know anything about this Tate Rodmaker guy. He's a junior. I don't really know anything about him. But, maybe he'll be able to get it done. There's a lot of talent on Florida State nonetheless. They've got a good defense. They've got plenty of targets on the offense. But really, against like Georgia, Oregon, Washington, do you really think Florida State without Jordan Travis is going to win those games without Jordan Travis? I'm going to repeat myself. I don't think so. And I just feel like it was dumb. I don't know why you're running it. You should just be throwing the ball. I feel like the only reason why they would be running it was for Jordan Travis's Heisman presence, but I don't feel like Jordan Travis is really even close to some of the people up there like Marvin Harrison, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Like, I just don't think he's even close. Even though he's a great quarterback, there's better candidates right now. Kansas State at Kansas. This one was almost really close to my prediction. Kansas pretty much had this one ready to be packed up and sent away with a win against their rival. They were up in the early third quarter, 27-16, where Kansas State would score a touchdown, 2-point conversion, make it 3 points, and then another touchdown, and Kansas would pretty much go silent from the start of the third quarter to the end of the game. As expected, their quarterback was not good. He was 11 for 16, 162 yards, a touchdown, but 2 picks. Not the best. I mean, 11 for 16 is pretty good. 162 yards and just 11 completions is good in a touchdown, but 2 picks is pretty bad. It was the running game for both of these teams that pretty much did all the work. Neal for Kansas, Devin Neal was 18 carries, 138 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Kansas State running back Giddens was 21 carries, 102 yards, a touchdown. Will Howard was 13 for 24, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. Both of these teams played on pretty much the same level. However, Kansas played better in the first half. Kansas played better pretty much in the first half, and Kansas State played better in the second half. Kansas State takes the rivalry win, and Kansas fans are left disappointed. Washington at Oregon State. Originally, when I made this prediction, I did not account for the rain. I was like, I didn't even know it was going to rain, but I guess that's probably pretty easy to assume that it's going to be raining in Oregon. I probably should have thought about that. I said it was going to be a night game. The run game was going to be serious, and the fans were going to be hyped. There was going to be so much momentum. It was going to be an annihilation. Wrong. It was pretty close. Oregon State had multiple opportunities to win this game, but let's just get straight to the point. DJ fucking sucks. DJ sucks. He is awful. He went 15 for 31, 164 yards, and 2 interceptions. And a lot of people, Matt B. Great made a great point in his video. A lot of people want to blame the rain, put the blame on the rain, but both teams are playing in the rain. Michael Penix had almost the same amount of passes and almost the same amount of completions, same amount of yards, but do you see 2 interceptions on his stat line? No, you see 2 touchdowns. I'm just saying, like, DJ, doesn't matter what defense you're playing against and whatnot. If you were an actually good quarterback, you wouldn't be playing like shit. Ultimately, if DJ was actually good, Oregon State would have easily won this game, considering Washington didn't score a point in the second half. They didn't score a singular point, meaning Oregon State had a whole half to win this game, and DJ was not able to get it done. Damian Martinez, he did everything in his possibility. He did 26 carries, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We all knew he was going to be great. It was going to be down to whether DJ could be a good quarterback or not, but he just isn't. He's not a good quarterback. He brings his team down significantly. I will say there was a missed field goal by Washington, which did make this game a little bit closer. So really there was a couple times when Washington should have scored points in the second half, but ultimately they didn't. And interception led to the missed field goal by Washington, almost led to points. And then on the final drive for the Beavers, it's a 4th and 5, and what happens? DJ Ugali balls pass incomplete. He's a pretty shit quarterback, and he really brings down Oregon State. It sucks to see it, because if they had any quarterback that was actually good, Oregon State would be like a one-loss team right now at minimum. DJ brings the team down by so much. He's not a good quarterback. And Washington takes, I'd still say, a pretty impressive win, considering Damian Martinez is really good. It was raining, and you're on the road. Still a pretty impressive win by Washington, but still, DJ is a little bit better. Oregon State wins this game. Florida at Missouri. Dude, this one was wild. I'm surprised Florida put this amount of game up. And a lot of people recently, after this game, I've just heard people say Florida's not a good football team this year. And originally I agreed. But, I mean, dude, 31-33 final score at Missouri? That's pretty damn good. Let's go ahead and look at Florida's resume. They lost on the road at Utah, which is an exact opposite of the Florida Stadium, so I don't expect them to play fantastically, especially in the season opener to the team that pretty much stunk Utah's season last year. Utah beats them, then Florida turns around and wins against McNeese, and then kicks the crap out of Tennessee, beats Charlotte, and then gets killed at Kentucky. But it's okay, because that was a game Ray Davis went crazy, kicked the crap out of Vanderbilt, make an absolutely wild comeback win against what's their face, Florida. They got a team. Whoa, what the hell? I'm sorry, I'm confused. South Carolina got a safety with 4 seconds left in the game. Oh, that was probably them taking it to the back of the end zone and shit. I see. But then Florida gets their crap kicked in by Georgia, expected. And then the worst loss, they lose in overtime at home to Arkansas, at Florida to Arkansas. Not the best performance, but Arkansas they do have a decent amount of talent on the team, so they should have been performing at a good rate like this anyways this year, but they've just turned out to be a lot worse than we expected, but still not a good win for Arkansas at all. Then Florida would put down some numbers against LSU's pathetic defense, and most recently, they'd put up this game. I look at Florida's resume, and a lot of people would say not good. I'd say pretty good. I'd say pretty decent. But this game definitely was a shocker. I mean, it was a close game all the way through, with pretty much Florida going up 31. Florida going up 31-30 with a minute 36 seconds left in the game. And it looks like the game was over. It took a miracle, like 4th and 17 conversion by Missouri, and then a drive to put them in field goal range. And, of course, clutch kicker kicks it through the uprights to give Missouri the win. I mean, they seriously pulled that one out of their ass. Missouri really should not have beat Florida there. And Florida's a pretty good team, man. And a lot of people are like, no way is Florida State going to go into Florida and lose that game. I saw a lot of potential the whole time. I don't know if I spoke on it or anything, but the whole time I've kind of been staring down that game this year. Florida, they're going to make that Florida State game difficult, man. Florida's not to be overlooked. Missouri is still a really good team. This was just not their best performance defensively. Offensively, they were great. Defensively, they could have performed much better. Allowing 31 points was not good at all, but they end up pulling out the victory at the end. Texas at TCU. Wow, dude, I still forgot to change that thing to Iowa State. Texas at Iowa State. I was talking about the upset potential. I feel like I was not the only person who thought there was a lot of upset potential in this game. Ultimately, Texas keeps doing the same shit that they keep doing. I predicted that they would do that. Iowa State would make it close, but Texas would just be out of reach. It was that, but lower scoring and a bit bigger of a point margin. Ultimately, Texas just gets up by like 20 or something, or gets up like 23-7 or something like that, and then just says defense do the rest of the work. And Quinn Ewers was good, 23 for 33, 281 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as the running back was good. But really, I just don't understand why Texas isn't putting up more points. It looks like there was a bad fumble, 54 yards of penalties, but really, they converted their only fourth down they went for. I don't understand how they're only putting up 26 points. Let's go ahead and see if there was a bunch of missed field goals or something. Nope, doesn't really look like it. No, there was no missed field goals. They just weren't cashing in touchdowns like they should have. Really, Texas should have beat up this team more by their offensive performance, but yeah, their defense continues to hold strong for them. Georgia State at LSU, the last game of the week. I said Georgia State would put up a lot, and this was actually pretty good, impressive performance by LSU's defense, holding a team to just 2 touchdowns. That's step up. I know it's Georgia State, but LSU's defense has majorly brought this team down, and considering it was tied up in the second quarter, LSU's defense did do their part in shutting this team down. Of course, Jaden Daniels was great. Dude, 25 for 30, 413 yards, and 6 touchdowns through the air, as well as he had 10 carries, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Motherfucker scored 8 touchdowns. Oh my goodness, Jaden Daniels is crazy. I really hope somehow he gets another year of eligibility, because dude, if he gets a good defense, bro, this team's the fucking national champions, bro. This team is ridiculous. If only they had a defense. But this is the last game of the week. Again, if you made it this far, let me know what you think in the comments about posting other things than just college football and NFL sometimes, maybe like a video game or something, because I've got some stuff cooked up right now. But other than that, a like and subscribe would help. A comment always helps, and that's all for me. Adios.